Morning and welcome to Will My PPP Loan Be Forgiven? Thanks for joining us today. My name is Brian Schill and I'm the Executive Director for the Peters Township Chamber of Commerce, and facilitating with me is Kelly Keene, Operations Coordinator.
Good morning.
Just a little bit about the Chamber. We're a 501c6 non-profit or membership based. We receive no government funding. Funding primarily is composed of each member's annual investment and our events and sponsorships. Our mission is to provide connections, opportunities, partnerships, and resources to grow our businesses and serve our communities. Quite simply, we promote, advocate, connect, and educate. In addition to Peters Township, our area of coverage also includes the South Hills and Northern Washington County. Joining us again this week is Mr. Glenn Main. He is the managing partner at the Main Point Group, former CPA, longtime chamber member, and lives right here in McMurray. His family owns multiple businesses, and he's a consultant to business owners all over the United States. So a little background, those of you who've been with us before know this, and those that are new, welcome. We continuously receive questions regarding PPP, so we started this series 3 weeks ago. So we wanted to find someone who would be able to facilitate these, and voila, here we are with the noted national expert, Glenn Main. So our goals today will a little bit of a review, updates from the past week, and there have been some significant updates, and then we'll do some Q&A. A little Zoom 101. I'd ask that everyone please remain muted during the entire update. That'll eliminate the background noise. It's being recorded, so it'll be available on our website after we're done. And if you'd like to ask a question, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen. At this point, I'd like Glenn, would you like to take it away?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. So we said last week that we went national. So Brian's correct that the footprint for the chamber is basically Pittsburgh and the South Hills, but I know that on the call today are, again, people from all over the United States. Texas, Houston area, Baltimore, and so forth. So that's really exciting. I'm trying to find somebody from another country so we can say we're international. How about that, Brock?
Sounds good.
That'd be fun, right? Okay. It's really cool, by the way, that what we're doing, I think it's unique in the United States. I think chambers, like everybody else, are scrambling to figure out what to do. And I don't think anybody else is doing it this way. I think people are coming on to advertise things. That's not what we're doing, right? We decided to make the whole thing free early on. We're not pitching anything. We're not selling anything. Against all of our better instincts, this is not about making money on anything, right? Because it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair because everybody's just fighting to keep their business going. I get a cheat sheet from Kelly that shows me all the people that are on. It's pretty awesome. You know, when you see how businesses are so interlinked in a community, and you know, I'm going to go buy some of that CBD stuff from Tanya pretty soon. You know, Nancy Glicksman keeps me straight from my, when they forced me on Medicare, Medicaid, she helped me out on that. David Lindbergh, I don't know him, but he plays music. That's a good thing. Matt from Reschenthaler's office, I owe him a call, but man, we need the politicians right now to help us. I see Steve from Community Bank, Marcy from Clearview, Kim Sporetto from PuroClean. That's a good business to be in right now. And Olivia from the insurance company. So, you know, everybody's got to put, you know, in the effort right now. So a couple of things. There's been a lot of developments in the last week. So I'm going to lean again on my buddy, Steve McCarron, my sort of partner in crime, if Steve's okay with it, because he called me first before I called him on I think it was Saturday morning. I'm not sure, but he said, "You're never going to believe it." Well, I kind of sort of would, but this was an all-time ridiculousness when the SBA dropped the form 3508. Yeah, 3508 plus instructions and everybody. If you haven't seen it, do not read this or look at it within an hour of eating. Okay, that's all I need to say. So I'm going to let Steve talk about it in a second, but let me tee him up because he's much smarter than me about this stuff and say, we've always said a couple of things before we started the calls. First of all, this is a plain English zone, right? No wonky speak, no banker speak, Steve and Marcy, no accounting speak, even though I can pretend to be an accountant because I used to be one and still trying to get over that. My therapist says one of these days. No advisors speak. This is like English, Englsh, right? English. Okay, secondly, just a quick review, all right? Why are we doing this? Because all of us have other things to do, especially Brian. No, Brian doesn't have anything else to do, but Kelly does. So why are we doing it? So it's very important to do this right now. I don't know about you guys. I know what it costs because we use them and our clients use them, the kind of attorneys, accountants that really know what's going on. I'm not talking about, unfortunately, a lot of my friends in the accounting and legal industries and consultant industries who are guessing a little bit and trying to figure it out. I'm talking about the guys who really are on the inside track at the national level. And most of them are my friends. You know, I don't have a lot of friends, so they're my friends. And it's pretty wild. But their billing rates are, typically average around $500 an hour. So if you can consume, I'm not pretending to be that, but I can, smell their fumes. So if you can consume 80-90% of what you need to know for, what's the teeny tiny price that you charge for membership, Brian? It's embarrassingly low. That's all I remember. What is it? How much is it?
Ours range
What's the
from
price for membership?
165 to 300 max.
Okay, so it's about a half an hour of one of these guys. And we'll give you 8 to 10 weeks for free. I mean, I don't know what we're thinking, Steve. This is not a good, I think we need to think the whole business model, right? But seriously, I am dead serious. And Kelly will make me answer every question. And if you know Kelly, you don't get on the wrong side of Kelly. Okay, so, right, Kelly? I have to answer every question. So it may not be the right answer, but I'll take a stab. Okay, so we're doing it because we actually are business owners and we care about business owners. That's really true. Second, we want you to get your loan forgiven. I've said this a lot. I have no clients anywhere in the United States. Some have loans as high as Steve, right, is 2.2 million-ish. He does not want a loan for the federal government, even at 1%. He doesn't. He wants a forgivable loan. He wants the sucker forgiven. That's what people want. They don't mind having the loan for a little while, but the goal is forgiveness. Now, the good news is all of you hopefully got your loan, although I've got a loan application right here that I'm sending to Steve this afternoon to help with for one of his clients, but nobody wants the loan. They want a forgiveness of the loan they already have. So hopefully all of you have your loans or are getting your loans, but the clock is ticking. You can sort of hear it in the background, right? Tick, tick, tick. And you know that 8 weeks, even though time's all distorted anymore, is going to happen quickly And if you're thinking right, you don't want it to happen and then go, geez, I need to sort of get on that forgiveness deal, right? That would be bad. So everybody's saying the same thing. We got to jump on this. So get 100% forgiveness with one more condition, which is we want to make sure that nobody screws up. That's the technical term, okay? The ultimate screw up is what they started to threaten a little while ago, and we got some clarity on it, but it's not, don't get too comfortable that if you borrowed less than $2 million, they will not automatically send you to jail or give you $1 million fine. But that's the SBA saying that. If it's over 2 million, just go ahead and put on the cuffs and walk in. I mean, it's going to be rough. So we got to prepare those people, which we have been, but we are. We know what's coming. We just don't know how bad it's going to be. So number 2, that's for you, Matt. So number 2, 2 million and less, the SBA will not go after you. They assume that you had the necessity, not the need for the loan. And that's where the weirdness got in there. There was never a need-based language in the act or anything. And Senator Rubio, who's one of the lead guys, the Florida senator, said, we realize that it's not about need. So the language said necessity. Do you feel it's necessary to get this money to keep your business going? Well, who wouldn't say that? That's just common sense right now. We don't know. Nobody knows. So the problem is not the SBA at this point in that sense. It's the IRS who hasn't issued anything like that and who has stirred the pot. It's the whistleblower statute, which we talked about already over and over and over. The government has a 1-800 number, literally, for whistleblowers to call and turn you in. I'm not making this up. And as an extra incentive, they're not permitted to be unmasked. Use that term, it's in the press. If you don't know what that means, unmasked, they did it to high government officials. The last administration did, but that's not a political statement. It's what happened. And they do not permit the whistleblower to be unmasked by law, by penalty of law. And number 2, they reward them with a 25% of the recovery. Okay, so if you tick off one of your employees in this process and they get the 800 number, they get 25% of the recovery. I'm not saying it to scare you. It's just what's there. That doesn't exempt anybody on this call by the SBA. I'm concerned. We're talking to the clients about it. Be very, very careful right now. So I believe one of the things we should talk about, I'll just say it in a public forum, because Brian and Kelly and I haven't talked about it. The board hasn't talked about it. But I think we got to pivot this thing away from getting through the PPP loan to what are we all going to do in the future. So if employment at the SBA as an auditor is not your goal for lifetime work, right, for the 4.4 million loans that they're going to have to attend to, then what are you going to do? What kind of business are you going to run? Okay. I think we need to be talking about that because a lot of people don't know what to do and they don't know how to transform their business. But I think it's a very critical problem. That's what I talk about more right now every day with folks around the country than I am PPP, because we got our hands around PPP. It's just getting through it. So everybody knows how they got the loan. Now we got to get forgiveness from the loan. So I'm going to stop talking for a couple of minutes because we want to get to Q&A here quickly. And Kelly's going to monitor that if she's willing to. But Steve, would you talk a little bit about the Friday Night Massacre, is what I'm calling it, on the 15th? Is that a fair name calling for what happened? Steve?
I will leave this clean. All right.
Okay.
So it's 8 o'clock Friday night. I've had a long, hard week. I'm enjoying my dinner, and I get a text message from my SBA contact in the Pittsburgh and Washington D.C. area, and she says to me, "It's going to be a long, long summer." and then within 5 minutes, I get the PPP forgiveness document. I took a look at it. And I think I threw my phone in the trash for 2 days. But
Wow.
one of the things that I will say about the PPP forgiveness document is that the SBA did make it clear that that they were going to provide additional guidance regarding this document, and that when we read through this, that it was certainly going to answer a lot of questions, but it would certainly raise more, and they knew that. So as in regards to this document, I just had 3 quick takeaways on it as far as its usefulness. First of all, I think it helps to clear up what expenses can be included and what expenses cannot be included. And it gives us some guidance on the type of documentation that needs to be provided. Secondly, it provides the various calculations that need to be done. And Glenn's going to talk all about that today. And then thirdly, it has this new term that we're all going to become familiar with, which is known as the alternative payroll covered period. So that was the third thing. Basically, and again, Glenn's going to touch on this as well, but basically saying that, yes, you still have to look at 8 weeks, but that 8 weeks might be able to be shifted a couple days based on your payroll period. I thought those were the 3 big takeaways. Through my conversation, through my 3 points. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Keep going.
With my conversations with the SBA throughout the week, again, they made it very clear to me that additional guidance would come out regarding this document. The other thing that they told me is that more than likely a second forgiveness document would come out specifically for sole proprietors, partnerships, and a partnership would be defined as you file a 1065 tax return, independent contractors, and if you are a business where the owner gets paid by a means other than a K-1. So they're either going to tweak the form that they sent out on Friday, or they're going to provide a second form for those folks. So keep that in mind. My big complaint about this document is that it probably about 20 to 30% of the businesses, at least Community Bank helped, this document applies to. Everybody else is kind of like, again, you can take some good points from it, you can start to get ready, but it's not really what you need quite yet. So that was another takeaway from this week. And then finally, as Glenn goes through all this information, there's a couple of important time elements that I want everybody to be aware of that I don't think anybody is aware of. And I've talked to various SBA resources and contacts this week, and I've got this information confirmed. So I have a feeling that there's a lot of small business owners that think that when their 8-week period is up, they're going to walk into the bank, hand off their information, and maybe within a week or two, their loan will be forgiven.
Mm-hmm.
I need to let everybody know, at least as of today, that is definitely not the case. What will happen is when you submit your information to the bank for forgiveness, the bank has 60 days to look at your information, make sure it makes sense, dot the I's, cross the T's, and keep this in mind. Like, for example, here at Community Bank, we had, 600 of these. So more than likely when, the first week or two, we're going to have 200 people who all show up the same day with their let's be forgiven. But the bank will have 60 days to dot the I's and cross the T's. At that point, the bank will then go into the E-Trans system, enter your information. At that point, the SBA then has another 90 days to actually forgive your loan.
Wow.
So you're looking
Wow.
at 5 months at most where your loan could be out there. Now, hopefully the SBA is working on some way to streamline that. And certainly I will tell everybody on the phone, the bank is working on ways to streamline our end of it. But it's really a partnership. I mean, the bank can only do so much. And then at that point, even we have to wait for the SBA to say, okay, Community Bank, for client XYZ, this all looks good. Here's the money so that you can forgive their loan. So keep that in mind as you go through this process, and as you're thinking about how soon your loan will be forgiven. I would be surprised if it is forgiven quickly.
Wow. That's if you ever watch whatever poison of choice on the evening news, you guys like CNN, Fox, whatever, they have this thing called breaking news. So you could probably tell my reaction. What he just said I've never heard before, but I know Steve really, really well. And what he just said is I mean, Matt, you might want to dig into this too. I'm not doubting Steve because he's got a pipeline to the SBA, which has been invaluable. But Matt, this is a problem. This is a huge problem. Everybody thought walking into this that it would be, get a loan and then 8 weeks after I spend the money, I'm done. That's not what's happening. I mean, this is not good. This is not good. I get it because I've been thinking, how on earth are they going to process 4.4 million loans? Do you guys realize it's 4.4 million loans? I feel like this is Groundhog Day, Steve. We saw this in and not Punxsutawney Phil either. We saw this in the loan phase, right? This exact same problem. They announced the money would be available, $395 billion with the B. I don't know how much that is. It's a lot. And everybody kind of thought, hey, it's going to last through, it's through June 30th, right? That's the program. And I kind of said to clients, maybe we better just get this done. And so the large ones got done. Okay, sorry about that. And we were pushing them through as fast as we could. Nobody knew what we needed to do. Literally, the bankers, I'm talking to bankers, I'm talking to CPAs, I'm talking to attorneys, I'm trying to read the 880-page document. Nobody knew anything. We were trying to make it up because we didn't know. I created one-page spreadsheets because most business owners have the attention span that lasts one page, and that's enough. SBA doesn't get it because this document they just laid on us is 11 pages with like 3-point type. If it was 10-point type like normal reading, that means it'd be 50 pages. So we started trying to figure out how to get people through the loaning process. Well, the money was all gone in 2 weeks. I don't know if you remember that. So everybody that didn't have a $500 an hour law firm or $1,000 an hour New York City law firm, like Harvard and Princeton and Shake Shack and people like that, they got nailed. They got shut out, like probably all of you. So we all got funded on the second round. So the clock, in a perverse way, it's probably been to our benefit, because the SBA, like Steve just said about forgiveness, had zero guidance as of, I've been saying April 1st, I think it was the 3rd, but April 1st is a better date because that's April Fool's Day. So on April Fool's Day, we started. But it was really, I think, April 3rd. It's now been almost 2 months. Feels like 20 years, doesn't it? And now we're being told it's not 8 weeks, it's 5 months and 8 weeks. I don't know about you guys. I got better things to do with my life than do this for, I mean, this has kind of been fun, but it's not that great. So I am not happy with that. And I think, Matt, we need to get Reschenthaler on here and talk to him and kick him in the butt and send him back to DC and tell him to do something. I can't, I'm disgusted with that, really. Sorry, can't tell how I feel. Okay, shake it off. So what do we need to do? I don't think what you're going to hear week to week is that much different, because it's the same thing, only worse, right? So here's what we learned in the loan process. We learned that the early bird does get the worm, that getting this done and figured out early is to your advantage, because they issued a rule that said, if you get your loan early, so it's the same thing that's going to happen in forgiveness. If you get it done early and they change the rules, how does that work, Steve? How does it work? How do we learn how that works?
I'm sorry, Glenn, the forgiveness part, I mean, what specifically, what part of the
Right, so
forgiveness?
we learned in the loan part, if you submitted your loan paperwork under the guidance that we had, which was none, and you got your loan and they changed the rules that made it worse, what happens to you? Nothing, right?
Well,
You
nothing,
get to
right, you're
use,
okay.
right, you're okay.
Mhm.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is going to happen to us again. They're
Yes.
going to change the rules.
Mhm.
They issued 47 rule changes, right, Matt? Am I right? What do you think? Is Matt?
Yeah, and more will be coming. Yeah.
Right? So we had 47 rule changes. They were coming at us right, left, and center. One of the tax attorneys on the call I was on yesterday mentioned, or CPA, one of the top CPAs in the United States, mentioned we've not heard anything for 8 or 9 days, which is like an eternity. Have you noticed that, Steve? We haven't, they've been pretty quiet. I think it's because they've been focused on this forgiveness document, which now we find out isn't the last document, which is the same thing that happened with the loan deal. They changed those documents too.
Right.
And if you
And
listen
also-
carefully to what he just said, most business owners, and I'm guessing most people on this call, file on a Schedule C because you're a sole proprietor in an LLC, single member LLC. You file on a Schedule C. You do not file, most small businesses maybe file a schedule, an S Corp 1120S, or potentially if you have partners, it's a 1065, correct? If those form names don't sound familiar, pull out your tax return. Okay, those are IS form numbers. So Schedule C is by far the most prominent way that business owners file. My wife has an S Corp. I have LLCs, but I still file a Schedule C for one business because it's set up that way. So I'm saying that by them kicking the can down the road, which is what they did with the loan part too, they're hanging the little guy, which they're not all little, right? I've seen multi-million dollar revenue Schedule Cs. They're pushing them off in favor of the quote unquote bigger guys again. So who gets their forgiveness first? That's not right. That is not fair. I'm sorry. So I agree with Steve. Let's get our ducks in a row. Let's go get a drink. What, is it too early for happy hour right now? I mean, I just feel like, oh my gosh. So we need to get on Q&A. All right. The same offer applies. This is for free. After you call Brian or Kelly and give them your $165 or $200 or whatever you give them, to keep doing this, I'm dead serious. They're struggling, if I can say this, because of the events of the crisis, just like the rest of us are. They need your support. Just because it's free, just because they're not charging you, just because I'm not charging you, doesn't mean it's not worth anything. I know it's worth a lot because I get emails and love letters and flowers. Well, not the latter two, but I get emails and everybody's saying, this is great, keep doing it, thank you very much. That's payment enough, but it's a problem. So I have 3 documents I'm happy to send you. And I apologize, by the way, some people asked us for documents last week. The email's not working right, I think, but it's info at themainpoint.com. If you don't hear from us soon, just use my personal email, gmain, Gmain at themainpoint.com. Okay. If that doesn't work, and I hate to say this publicly, but contact Kelly and she'll come over and kick me until I do it. So anyway, 3 documents. Number 1 document, the aforementioned SBA Form 3508, right? Do not look at this before food. Okay, it's horrible. It's a nightmare. Do not try to figure it out. Do not call your bank if it's a big bank. If it's Steve or Marcy at Clearview, go ahead and call them because they actually care about you. The big banks do not have the capacity to deal with this. I know that for a fact. They're struggling too. Okay, I have friends at big banks. I'm kind of teasing a little bit. So nobody knows. It just came out. It just hit the fan, right? If you want to, you can call your CPA or trusted advisor. Nothing wrong with that. I can tell you they're struggling too, though. So just be prepared. I personally would not trust a guy trying to sell you software or an Excel spreadsheet they made up, because this is too complicated, right? I developed an Excel spreadsheet in the beginning that we've refined for planning purposes only. It's not SBA approved. It's not Steve McCarron approved or anything, but it's been a useful tool for planning. Okay. And it kind of points out the obvious and shows you where the traps are. If you want that, that's what we've sent out. So you need to email us if you want that, but it's not an official document. It's not approved for anything other than your use. So we've tried to be clear and careful about that. Okay. You still got to fill out this monstrosity. And we're already talking about how to cut through the mustard, but we don't know the answers yet, right? The banks I know are being approached with software solutions and all kinds of other stuff and trying to figure it out too. So we'll give you what we have for free. One of my buddies, Alan Gassman, who's one of the top tax attorneys in the United States out of Florida, wrote an article for Forbes. It's 43 or 44 pages long to try to get his hands around this. If you want that, I'm happy to send it to you too. So let's do Q&A, but I think if you'll just continue to stay with us on this, dial back in every week. We'll continue to do it until nobody shows up, but more people keep showing up than the week before. We're trying to get everybody through, right? We're trying to get this done and not get anybody in trouble. That's the best we can do right now. This is tough. We should get, what do they call it, Brian, in the military when you're getting shot at every day? What's the pay? What's the extra pay? Hazard pay?
Hazardous duty pay. Combat pay.
We should get combat pay. I'm nominating you for combat pay, Brian.
Awesome.
Good.
All right, here's what we got. Let's go through some of these questions. Our first one, and I'll ask these whether or not we've gone over them, so before or not. So our first one is, are federal, state, and local payroll taxes forgiven?
No.
Okay.
The thing that counts in forgiveness is unemployment tax, right? So SUTA, S-U-T-A, state unemployment tax, not workman's comp, not payroll tax, not your match for FICA, all that, not includable.
Are sole proprietors and S corp being treated differently?
Yes, sir. And worse. It's a poor or unfair, don't get me started. It's not fair. Did you know about this, Matt? Do you know that there's differences in a very negative way?
Yes. I've fielded a lot of questions and concerns about that. Cataloging everything. That's one thing I've absolutely noticed.
Yeah, it's really bad.
Okay. The next question, the forgiveness application asks for the SBA PPP loan number and the lender PPP loan number. Our loan note doesn't have these numbers. My bank says they don't have access to these numbers. Where do I find them?
Steve, I don't know.
Yeah, that's kind of I apologize, Kim. That's kind of a shocking response from your bank. So I'll let you know, a community bank, everybody's loan number and SBA loan number went on their loan documents. Your bank absolutely should have their SBA loan number. If they cannot find your they would certainly have your bank's loan number. And if they cannot find your SBA loan number, then you would have to call the Pittsburgh district office, or maybe your local congressman or congressperson to get your SBA number. But your bank should absolutely have that information. That seems like you got a bad answer there. That's terrible.
Yeah, I would email Matt or Congressman Reschenthaler's office, right, Matt? You need to know this stuff, don't you?
Yeah, it's hard for us to know because sometimes the banks don't want to give that information. But yeah, I mean, the bank should know. But if you email me, I'll do my best to get some answers for you.
Yeah, I don't mean that you need to know a person's private information as much as you need to know that this nonsense is going on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I had to, quick story. I got a call from a craft brewery in Texas, had just built like a year or so ago, a $23 million facility, and this hit, and a big bank, won't mention any names to protect the guilty, but they got their loan application in 23 minutes after it started, and were told not to contact the bank for a month. And so we had to contact their congressman's office, and somehow magically the bank called them back in a day. So it's what Matt and Congressman Reschenthaler and the good guys up there do is powerful. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to call. Right, Matt? Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. A couple longer questions. So if you would like to follow along with me in the chat, if we calculate full-time equivalent from February 15th to April 26th, but were closed from March 16th through April 26th. Do we take the hours worked by part-time staff from February 15th to March 16th and then divide by 10 weeks? Employees only worked 4 weeks, but that is a 10-week period, which would essentially take our full-time equivalents during that period to a very low number.
Okay, I'll answer the question, but not right now. Okay, this is a very technical issue, but it's a huge problem. Many businesses, I'm sure a lot of people on the call, are struggling because they want to comply. They want to open their businesses. They want to get things going. But most of us, except for our friends in Texas and Maryland and some other states on the call, live in what I'm kindly referring to as the People's Republic of Pennsylvania. Okay? It's a socialist state right now. And we are not permitted to open businesses. I cannot legally open my office building, right? So what are you supposed to do? We told our employees to stay home early on. We told our clients to stay away. Can you imagine that? Oh, I'm running a business, employees stay home, clients stay away. It's absurd. For like, it was okay for a little while, but you can't do that forever. Somehow or the other, we got to get past that. From a business standpoint, I get the health issue. I'm just saying you can't operate a business like that for long. So hair salons with, people that are unable to come into the business, restaurants, on and on and on. Some businesses cannot function without a physical space open. Like we're fortunate, right? I can be remote, operate the business. So how do you comply with a requirement to hire people as quote unquote full-time equivalents, which some of you have never heard that term before in your life, thank God, and comply with the rule? Because if you don't have full-time equivalency to last year when things were quote unquote normal, guess what happens to your loan? We've talked about that already. If you have half the full-time equivalency now as you did then, you get half forgiveness. Flag, not fair, right? The document I'll send you has the traps outlined just like that one. Out of the lines that I've identified that are pertinent to your business for the forgiveness calculation, there are 11 traps, and I know I'm missing some, okay? This is like a trap door to hell. It's really bad. So there are multiple ways to calculate FTE. There are multiple problems with FTE. I'll handle the call. I'll probably have to call whoever asked it because it's a complicated answer, but I'm happy to walk you through it. It's just very, very complicated. So thank you for the question. It's a very big problem. It's a problem for everybody actually, but it's a huge problem, huge problem.
All right, here's another question. And again, folks, what we'll do if we don't get your question answered or not fully, you can just let us know and we'll send them out. Like Glenn said, Kelly will beat them down and find them, and he'd be happy to answer your questions. Glenn's he's been really awesome to work with here. So, but this second question here is: if we laid off full-time employees late in March until now, if we restore the employees in June to regular salary, is there any salary reduction because we have restored the employee before June 30th?
Okay, so this wonderful business owner is pointing out another big trapdoor, right? There's a limitation on your forgiveness. So you have to add up all the stuff that you spent the money for, that you're allowed to spend money for, right? Payroll costs, mortgage interest, utilities, rent, basically. And like Steve said, it sounds obvious. It's not what's included, right? Even though they said what's included, it's still not obvious what's included. But let's say you got through that and you're exhausted and you're laying on the floor like a 3-year-old kicking your feet and you're saying, I'm done. No, you're not done. You have to pass these tests around the limitations, which can really hurt you for forgiveness. One of the limitations is FTE. You have to have a head count that's equivalent to what you had before. The other major limitation is what this person is referring to, which is a 25% reduction in salary. So simply said, as simple as I can make it, if you have an employee who last year, I'm going to do simple math, made $20,000, and this period you said, sorry, Jack, your salary equivalent, because you're not worth it, I can't pay you, I'm trying to hurt you, whatever reason you came up with, is $14,999. That's on a full-time basis, not for that period, on a full-time basis. That's less than 25%, right? 20,000, 25% is 5,000. You lowered them on an annualized calculation basis by $5,001. Okay? Now you got to do that calculation. Aren't you loving this, Brian? This is so much fun. What do you suppose is the penalty? What's the penalty shot? How long do you have to stay in the box with Mary Lemieux over that one? Is it $5,001? Is it $1? Is it 25%? So I'm not going to give you the answer because that's the perplexing issues. I know the answer. That's one of the perplexing things. Here's the deal. Email me, Brian, or preferably Kelly. We're going to take a poll. We're going to make this fun. Whoever gets the right answers, right, gets a discount on their annual membership. And I'll take company funds and make up the difference so the chamber doesn't suffer. But you get a discount. Okay? Next question.
All right, let's see.
I'll answer the question to the person, by the way.
Okay. Just so everybody knows, I'm going down through the Zoom chat. Kelly has put both of Glenn's, his personal, and the info email address on there as well. Next question. If we paid 3 months of employee health care premiums in the 8 weeks of the covered period, can we include that amount? We had a deferral agreement from UPMC to pay our premiums later if we were waiting for a PPP. So it really was due during the period, even though not incurred.
Excellent question.
It is.
Really great question, right, Steve?
It is.
You want to take that one?
Yeah, my opinion on that would be no. Why I say that is because here at the bank, for example, a lot of people had their loan payments deferred, principal and interest, and due to that, they are not allowed to include deferred interest into their forgiveness calculation, that 25% piece. So I would say that if you had your health care premiums deferred, then you cannot include that. That's my opinion, kind of reading the tea leaves.
Yeah, and you ever see those surveys? Money Magazine used to do this. They took an income tax question, and they got 100 of the top CPAs in the United States. and they gave the same exact question to 100. Guess how many different, and this is established tax law, top tax experts, guess how many different ways of handling the question they got? Like 94. And that's established stuff, right? I know tax attorneys, CPAs, who would give the exact opposite answer that Steve just gave. But you know what? They'll tell you what I'm going to tell you. Steve might be right. They might be right. We do not know the answer to that question, which is maddening. It's maddening because we don't know exactly, even though we have this 11-page form, we're not sure of that answer yet. What guidance I'm getting in conversations with the top accountants, again, tax attorneys, is this: over count, over document what you believe based upon your best understanding or your advisor's best understanding of the rule as it exists today. Okay? In other words, guess. Over document. So if you got a $100,000 loan, count 125, 150,000 if you can in potential eligible forgiveness expense. As clarity develops, we can knock things out. But the opposite is worse. If you count exactly 100,000 to get the 100,000 forgiveness and you got 10,000 that gets knocked out, that's a problem. You see the difference? Over count. We can back off easier than we can add back in. So based upon that guidance from top people, I would count it because there's a basis to count it, a legitimate basis. You're not defrauding anybody. And you know, Steve might be right though. So just be aware that you might have to make it up somewhere else.
Thank you, sir. I love this question. It has nothing to do with PPP, but it's a great question. And it's, can we call Matt even if we're not in his district? And it was also answered by Matt as well. And the answer is yes, sort of. If you do not live in the district but would like to contact Matt, he would be happy to refer it. But I also would recommend that you call your congressman. And if you do not know who it is, just shoot us an email, info@ptcoc.org, and we'll help you. There's actually a website out there. If you Google it, it says, "Who is my congressman?" Because it needs your actual address because it's very important. And because I used to do the same thing that Matt does a few years back for the congressman, I do want to say a special thanks for Matt being on here. I'm not sure if he was going to, if he knew he was going to be featured and had to speak today, but it's very important, and we're very thankful that Matt is with us.
Absolutely.
So I just want to shout out to that. So that was a great question, and I do want to thank Matt for actually answering that one right here on the chat. And then there's another question here. Self-employed / independent contractors are just to sit tight and wait for revised or new forgiveness application. And Steve answered that one in chat. Yes, that is correct. So thank you for doing that. Matt has his email on there, and Kelly put a lot of his information on the chat as well. Chrissy has an awesome question. I'm in California. You all are so knowledgeable. Can I join? And would the membership be applicable and beneficial since I'm in another state? I want to tell other business owners in my area about this. Well, absolutely. We'd love to have you on board. So we'll reach out to you.
You have that California special program that it was just developed as the question was being read, right? Don't you have that California outreach program?
Right. Absolutely.
We won't even charge you more. We won't charge you more.
Yeah. We have about 4 minutes or so left. Another good question. We had an employee suddenly quit this week. We are hoping to hire someone quickly, but we fall short in but if we fall short in health insurance premiums, any suggestions?
Yes, another big issue, right? What are you supposed to do anyway, right? You've got people who won't come to work. We talked about it last time, right? Maybe their spouse says, you're not going to work because I'm old and sick and I have a health condition. If you go into work, even though the business is open, you could come home and I could die. That's legitimate, right? It's not because they don't want to work. They can't work or too afraid to work, right? What do you do with that? What do you do with somebody who says, I'm not coming back to work? I decided this was my chance to move to, the Florida Keys and be a bum. And, I'm not coming back to work. That screws up potentially your FTE that we talked about, your head count. Okay. Here's what you need to do. Very, 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 very important. Beside getting the right amounts in the right columns for the loan, which should be over documented. We talked about that. Over count. We can trim back. You also need to collect head count. You need to have more bodies to count than you had before. That will regulate the amount of your eligible forgiveness. So if you have a $100,000 PPP loan, get $110,000, $120,000, $130,000 worth of eligible expense. If you had 10 employees, you don't want to show up with 5 that you can count on June 30th. That means you only get $50,000 in forgiveness. That's a problem. You want to have 10. Here's the rule. We already know this rule. If somebody quits, if somebody won't come back to work, you need to document that, not just have an understanding, not do what a lot of business owners do and say, don't worry about it and don't document it. You need to document it, like a certified letter, like whatever you do to document that they quit, right? If you fire them instead of them quitting, that's another problem, right? Because you've hurt your FTE by getting rid of somebody who was no good or wouldn't show up or whatever reason. If you fire them, you need to send them a letter saying, these are the reasons you're being terminated, because those are candidates for the whistleblower program, for one thing, right? Number 2, protest their unemployment application. Not because you're being mean, you need to document your file, because when you send in your application for forgiveness, you're allowed to claim them as there, even though they are not there. Do you understand what I'm saying? You can count them as an employee for head count purposes, even though they are not there. But you have to CYA. If you don't know what that means, Brian will explain the meaning of that term. Okay? I'm not going to explain it because I'm not familiar with it. But Brian tells me it's CYA. CYA. Look it up.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that's all we got time for. We're up here at the 11 o'clock point. So
Can I show him my shirt?
Sure.
Yeah. So I told Brian before we got on, if you can read Spanish backwards, I bought this in Madrid. It says solo toro, hecho en España. So quiz question two. This gets you a double discount. Feel like a snake oil salesman all of a sudden. We need the money, guys. We need the money. Contact Kelly. Tell her what you think Solo Toro Hecho en España means it's very applicable to the subject. It has something to do with bullfights, but that's not why it makes sense to me for today. This is fun. We have to make this fun so we don't cry and we don't start happy hour, right, Kelly, at noon.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you, Glenn, and also
Yes, sir.
to your accomplices today, Steve and Matt. Appreciate all your input.
Have your attorneys call them for the lawsuit notice address.
Sounds good. Our next update is next Friday, May 29th at 10 a.m. So feel free to invite others that you think may be interested. Also, if you're not a member of the chamber, we'd love to have you aboard. So please reach out to us. And thank you, Chrissy, by the way. The chamber is open for business, albeit remotely. Our physical offices are closed, so email is best. And that email that Kelly put in there is info@ptcoc.org. And our phone number is 724-941-6345. Be sure to check out our new PT Chamber Community Support Facebook group that you can post on. Check out our chamber website and also our regular Facebook page. So again, I'd like to say thanks to Glenn and his accomplishments and to all of you for joining today. So we'll see you next week. Stay well, my friends.